Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Lodato, Dean of the SI Newhouse School of Public Communications, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the 2026 Mirror Awards. We want to thank you for joining us tonight as we celebrate the exceptional writing, reporting, and editing of journalists who hold a mirror to their own industry for the public's benefit. And thank you to our hosts from the Council on Foreign Relations. What a beautiful new venue this is for us. We are excited to be in this landmark space as distinguished as the work we recognize tonight. And of course, as many of you know, we stand at another crossroads for our industry. Unprecedented challenges on the First Amendment, the unceasing wave of technology sweeping through newsrooms and daily routines, budget shortfalls, staffing shortages, and yet more news to cover. What makes the work of our nominees stand out is the example they set for why journalism remains so essential to our democracy. They're helping the public understand complicated topics and how the media itself works. Mirror Award entries are written by the media about the media. And I have so much appreciation for the work our finalists do. So thank you to all of our finalists who are here tonight. I also want to take one moment to welcome our featured award winners, Evelyn Sue and Martin G. Reynolds, and our guests from the Maynard Institute, who are recipients of the Lorraine Branham Award. Your work to expand opportunity and representation across the journalism industry remains vital as ever, and we welcome you here tonight as well. And a very special welcome to Lester Holt, this year's recipient of the Fred Dressler Leadership Award. Lester is one of the most distinguished and authoritative voices in broadcast journalism. You have set a standard for younger reporters and anchors across the country, and we're so excited to have you here tonight as well. We are looking forward to hearing more from the Maynard Institute and Lester later in our program. But before we get to the official part of the awards, we also want to welcome our members of our Newhouse Alumni Network who are here tonight, and especially the NBC News' Brian Chung, who will moderate our conversation with Lester, and Spectrum News anchor Cheryl Willis, our Master of Ceremonies. It's so wonderful to have outstanding alums like Brian and Cheryl with us tonight. I also want to welcome members of the Newhouse family, Syracuse University Board of Trustees, the Newhouse Advisory Board members, and Newhouse emerging leaders who are joining us. Your support means so much to accomplishing our core mission of educating the best communication students in the country. And finally, a word of thanks to those who are essential to the Mirror Awards competition. First, to our judges who volunteered to read through dozens of entries to narrow another competitive field, and also to two members of the Newhouse team. Alumna Rachel Chang fills a critical role keeping Mirror Awards submissions and judging on schedule, and Professor Joel Kaplan, who's been an important voice in helping to manage the Mirror Awards year after year. Thank you. And now, let's move on to our awards program. So please join me in welcoming Cheryl Wills to the podium. Cheryl?
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for joining us at the 2026 Mirror Awards. Let's get some energy in this beautiful place. And before we start our awards program, a little bit about me. I've been with Spectrum News New York 1 since 1992, since its launch. And thank you for that. Let's hear it for longevity in journalism. And everyone knows I bleed orange. There was only two Newhouses when I was there, Newhouse 1 and Newhouse 2, and I'm just so proud to be an alum. So thank you, Dean Lodato, for what you do to keep Newhouse one of the best broadcasting schools in the country. I'm very proud. I want to take a moment to also mention a new partnership recently announced by Spectrum News and my alma mater that will provide students with hands-on experiences and professional development opportunities in journalism and media production. And I'd like to take a point of privilege to shout out my colleagues who worked so hard to make this happen under the leadership of Mike Baer, Allison Hellman, and Paul Marchand, who is an SU alum and a super Newhouse fan. I just want to ask them to stand because this is an extraordinary opportunity that is happening between, but they have done something very extraordinary. Yes, go Orange. I told you he's a super fan. And they're going to allow students to have access to Spectrum News' coverage across the country. And of course, we provide viewers with a look at top issues from the perspective now of Newhouse student journalists. We are so excited that Spectrum News is going to collaborate with Syracuse on this initiative that reinforces the Newhouse School's commitment to working with newsrooms on innovative ways to support local news. Can we hear it for local news? Okay, now to our awards. Tonight, we honor the work of journalists and the critical importance of that work to our democracy and society. The Mirror Awards were established in 2006 to recognize the reporters, editors, and writers who hold a mirror to their own industry for the public's benefit. The competition is open to anyone who conducts reporting, commentary, or criticism of the media industries in work produced for print, broadcast, or online distribution over the previous years. We want to send a special shout out to our sponsors and a special thank you to our lead sponsors, Charter, Spectrum, the Samuel I. Newhouse Foundation, and Advanced Media, and of course to the Council on Foreign Relations. They are sharing their beautiful event space with us this evening. Let's hear it for the Council of Foreign Relations. And you should also know, ladies and gentlemen, that net proceeds from the Mirror Awards fund Newhouse scholarships, which provide students access to a quality education, a superior education, Dean. So we are so grateful for our sponsors' support of the Mirror Awards program. Also, tonight is the culmination of a comprehensive judging process, which you need to know about. Over the past 2 months, a double tier of 60 judges paired over 212 entries down to 20 finalists in 6 categories. These entries provide a snapshot of the major media moments of the past year, reminding us of what was important, what has changed, and what's at stake. To all of our finalists, you need to know your work is vital, necessary, and appreciated. I know firsthand how much time and energy it takes to craft compelling stories or commentary about complicated topics that will connect with the reader or viewer. And coverage of the media itself can build, as you all know, trust with our audience, which is such a critical component of what we do every day. So a round of applause for all of our finalists. There are no losers here tonight. You're all winners. Your dedication to quality journalism means everything. And now let's get started and recognize this year's winners. First up, we have the Mirror Award for Best Single Article or Story. The finalists are Lily Mae Lazarus, Inside the Economics of Candace Owens' Media Empire and the Macron Lawsuit Threatening to Unravel It for Fortune. Neil Thesaya, How Tribal Radio Stations Are Preparing for a Future Without the Corporation for Public Broadcasting for Neiman Lab. Jesse Barron, A teen in love with a chat box killed himself. Can the chat box be held responsible? The New York Times Magazine. And Claire Malone, All the Billionaires' Men for The New Yorker. And the Mirror Award goes to Jesse Barron, a teen in love with a chat box, killed himself. Can the chat box be held responsible for the New York Times Magazine? And judges called it a heartbreaking story well told that goes deeper than other AI chatbot stories, enriching our understanding of an evolving platform. Another judge noted the reporter gained the family's trust and, quote, spent a considerable amount of time trying to learn everything he could, adding that the story is deeply reported and well organized. Congrats, Jesse.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. My editor, Willie Staley, is here. Thank you, Willie. This is a real honor, and I happened to speak this week to Megan Garcia, whose son is the subject of this story. He was a teenager who had a relationship with a chatbot and committed suicide after that relationship. And I asked Megan what she was up to, and there's this feeling, I think, that we all have of a kind of encroaching fear and ambiguity about AI and all this that the dean was talking about. But whenever I speak to Megan, I feel a little more hopeful because she is active in litigation and in trying to change laws and ban chatbots for kids under 18. And I thought, if she can be hopeful, given what she's went through, we can all be hopeful too. And I'm really proud of this, so thank you very much, and congratulations to everyone.
Our next award is for Best Profile, recognizing a carefully researched and sourced piece about an individual or organization noteworthy in the media industry. The finalists are McKay Coppins, Growing Up Murdoch, for The Atlantic; Yona T.R. Golding, The Time to Look, for Columbia Journalism Review; and Antonia Hitchens, Under the Influence, for The New Yorker. And the Mirror Award goes to Antonia Hitchens, Under the Influence, for The New Yorker. Judges praised the deep, broad, and relevant reporting in this piece, calling it chock full of details, riveting scenes, and inside the belly of the beast insights. They also described it as a timely and informative read that was, in their words, hard to put down. Congrats, Antonia.
Thank you so much to Micah Hauser, my editor, who's here, who was so patient and who saved me from all my worst instincts in writing this. And also, obviously, to David Remnick and Mike Lua, who aren't here. But I think this really goes to show how much the kind of seemingly marginal characters in this ecosystem of Trump tend to kind of gravitate toward the center of things. So thank you so much for reading and for finding a way to be interested in this story. And I only resent having to go after Jesse Barron, who gave such thoughtful remarks about the kind of existential threat facing our society. But thank you to everyone for coming and for reading the story.
Moving on now to the Best Commentary category. We honor those writers who demonstrate analytic skills, a unique voice, and a deep knowledge of the issues. The finalists are Eamon Ogana, The Storm Inside, for Columbia Journalism Review; Pamela Alma Weymouth, My Grandmother Stood Up to Nixon, Bezos Should Take Note, for The Nation magazine; and Emma Goldberg, How the Womanosphere Shaped the New Women's Right, for The New York Times. And the Mirror Award goes to Pamela Alma Weymouth, My Grandmother Stood Up to Nixon, Bezos Should Take Note, for The Nation magazine. Judges called this a piercing commentary, saying Weymouth speaks for those who cannot speak for themselves. They praised her narrative style for drawing readers in easily and called the piece well written for a general audience, but with serious reflection on what the loss of press freedom means for our country. Congrats.
Kind of heavy. I'm deeply grateful for this honor and humbled to be considered among such extraordinary writers. I want to thank those who helped me find my voice and cheered me on when I felt afraid, and thank my incredible editors and cheerleaders, Deirdre English, Kate Hopper, and David Hockman, and Katrina Vanden Heuvel, of course. I want to thank all my beloved friends, Deborah Stachel and Norma Bowles, and my beautiful sons, Quinn and Aiden, and my uncle Don Graham and my sister Catherine Weymouth for letting me speak out without censorship. To my grandmother for her example of what courage and integrity looks like. And finally, last but not least, to Katrina Vanden Heuvel and the whole team at The Nation for believing that this story mattered and not being afraid to speak truth to power. I'd like to dedicate this to all the writers and staff at the Post, past and present, for their adherence to the journalistic code, tell the facts, and take no favors. If we keep shining a light on the truth, we will win, and history will remember those who collaborated and those who resisted. And finally, there were people I feared pissing off with this article. But one thing I've learned as a writer is if you don't speak the truth and you don't piss off anyone, you're probably not writing the story that matters most. Thank you.
Moving on to the Best Media Newsletter category for a regular email newsletter covering the media industry. The finalists are Bill Gruskin, Laurels and Darts for Columbia Journalism Review, Brian Stelter, Andrew Carell, and Liam Riley, Reliable Sources for CNN, Tom Jones, The Pointer Report for Pointer, and Oliver Darcy for Status. And the Mirror Award goes to Oliver Darcy, Status. Judges said Status provided insights and analysis that I didn't get elsewhere. This is what a newsletter should do. They commended Darcy for his lively mix of in-depth reporting and carefully curated links to other media stories. One judge noted that so much of what Darcy writes are exclusives, and that gave him the edge. Congrats, Oliver.
Wow. I honestly was not anticipating winning this award, so thank you so much. This is a very meaningful award. Status is only 18 months old, and so having the recognition of a Mirror Award is so meaningful to us. My editor, John Pasentino's here, sitting over there. He saves me regularly when I probably go too far. Natalie Korak from our team is also here, and my wife, who allowed me to quit CNN. Actually, she encouraged me to quit CNN to launch Status, is here, so I'm grateful. The only thing I wanted to say is I think it's never been more important to hold this industry, hold a mirror up to this industry. And not only to just convey or to write what's happening, but to really hold the people shaping society to account. And I think we can all agree there are some worrisome things happening in the media industry today. And every night we try to hold these powerful forces accountable. And again, thank you for the recognition.
Now, every year, the Mirror Awards considers featuring pop-up categories covering the year's biggest media industry topics. This year, the category of Best Coverage of the Future of Late-Night Television was selected. And the finalists are Steven Zaitchik, Last Call for Late Night for The Hollywood Reporter, Reeves Weideman, After Lawn for New York Magazine, And Kayla Cobb and Adam Chitwood, The Future of Late Night Comedy, What's Lost When, Not If, It Goes Away, for the rap. And the Mirror Award goes to Kayla Cobb and Adam Chitwood for the rap. Judges praised the powerful data-driven storytelling in this piece, saying it had the heft of a broader look of what is lost in media when late night goes away. As one judge put it, this story gave me the broader perspective of the media and its place in our culture. Congrats, Kayla and Adam. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank my co-author and the best editor I've ever had, Adam Chitwood, who unfortunately cannot be here tonight. It is darkly funny to be accepting this award right now. In 2 days, it will mark the last day of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And late night is dying. It's dying because of declining linear ratings and also an administration that does not support freedom of speech. And with its death comes a cornerstone of America, honestly. I'm optimistic that this art form will continue in some capacity. After all, no one is more adaptable than a comedian. But I ask that we kind of reflect on late night and the history that it has given us. You know, from Johnny Carson to Jon Stewart, late night hosts come into our living rooms and help us deal with the horrors of the day. And it's really upsetting to be losing this piece of monoculture in an increasingly divided world. Thank you so much.
And now for our final juried category, the John M. Higgins Award for Best In-Depth Enterprise Reporting as a cable industry beat reporter and then as an editor at Broadcasting at Cable. John Higgins exemplified fairness and excellence in media reporting. Now, with this award, we honor a reporter or team of writers who tackled big issues with keen analysis and excellent reporting. The finalists for the 2026 Higgins Award are Hannah Thummies, From Reckoning to Retreat. Journalism's DEI efforts are in decline for Neiman Lab. Jonathan Mahler and Jim Ruttenberg, Inside the Murdoch Succession Drama for the New York Times. And Josh Jezza, How Wikipedia Survives While the Rest of the Internet Breaks for The Verge. And the Mirror Award goes to Josh Jezza for The Verge. Judges called this piece surprising, endlessly fascinating, and exhaustive in its research and reporting. They praised him for bringing to life a subject that is both ubiquitous and a little understood, noting it's a media story that, in their words, hasn't really been told. Congrats, Josh.
Thank you. This is a tremendous honor. I could not have done this without my editor, Kevin Wynn, who is not here tonight, but gave me the space and time to go deep on Wikipedia and its origins. Also, the many editors who very patiently explained to me over and over how Wikipedia works. I found their belief in the ability of people to arrive at a shared truth through principled deliberation to be admirable and reassuring. And most of all, my partner, Sarah, who is in the audience and is my first and most trusted reader. Thank you.
Congrats to all of the Mirror Award winners. Can we give them all a round of applause? Now it's time to present the Lorraine Branham Award, which honors a media organization's exemplary work in promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. In particular, this award recognizes efforts to hire and develop leadership talent who create change both to the organizations they oversee and the content they produce. The award is named for the late Dean Emerita Lorraine Branham, who was the first Black woman to serve as Dean of the Newhouse School. The recipient of this year's Lorraine Branham Award is the Robert C. Maynard Institute, founded in 1977 by visionary news pioneers led by Robert Maynard. The Maynard Institute is dedicated to expanding opportunity and representation across the journalism industry. The Institute has trained more than 200 newsrooms and 4,000 journalists through fellowships, professional development initiatives, and newsroom transformation programs. This vital work has helped to advance the careers of journalists of color and reshape leadership in the field. We're really proud to recognize this important work tonight, and I'm going to ad-lib a little here in light of what's going on. Here to offer remarks and present the award to the Maynard Institute is John X. Miller, but first, please enjoy this video about the Maynard Institute.
What the Maynard Institute does that's so important is cultivate journalism talent and make sure that all levels of our newsrooms are representative of this country.
We have a tremendous history that inspires us.
It was founded by a group of diverse journalists.
Really out of the strife and tensions of the Civil Rights era and the Kerner Commission report.
News media was castigated for not telling the complete story, the complete chronicling of the Black experience.
The big excuse on the part of journalistic institutions was, we can't find anyone qualified.
And Bob Maynard and the founders of the Institute said, we are going to remove that excuse from the equation.
By setting up an organization that would provide the training for journalists of color.
And they created programs and they did the training.
But on the other side, there has to be some effort by the organizations to give people the opportunity to exercise those skills. We don't have a diversity problem in the industry, we have an industry that has a problem with diversity. Journalism is a very difficult profession to be in. The news organizations continue to be hard places to work. People are getting burnt out. We have to innovate and think clearly about how do we plug in and connect to a new group of journalists. What is it they need? What is it they want? And what can we offer the craft of journalism?
We run a tremendous number of programs, including Maynard 200. We can see with our graduates who are editors, we can see changes in coverage.
And there are hundreds, if not, thousands of people who have been trained by the Maynard Institute in various programs.
This is a DEI effort that is also fundamentally about producing great journalism that changes this country.
We have an obligation to push journalism, to understand the impact that it has had when it is perpetuating systemic racism. That these institutions, if they are truly going to be seen as worthy of informing a diverse society, they have to get this right.
To help the next generation of leaders excel at their craft and to be those journalists that inform the world and fight for democracy.
Good evening, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to stand before you tonight to introduce Evelyn, Sue, and Martin Reynolds, who are receiving the Lorraine Branham Award on behalf of the Maynard Institute. To those who knew Lorraine, of which I count myself among them, she is remembered as a force to be reckoned with. I met Lorraine while I was an editor of a Night Ritter newspaper in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We were appointed editors of Night Ritter newspapers around the same time in 1996. Her forward-thinking focus on uplifting people through journalism is what led her from newsroom to the classroom, recognizing that journalism infused with compassion, intellect, courage, rigor are fundamental. She was a true trailblazer. In presenting the Lorraine Branham Award tonight and representing the Maynard Institute of Journalism Education, I am reminded of the trailblazing work of the Institute begun by 9 trailblazing journalists who, like Lorraine, deeply understood the times in which we live. We remain engaged in the decades-long struggle for equality, justice, and inclusion in these yet-to-be United States. From the newsroom to the classroom, she found an even greater calling as a journalism educator in a leadership position first at the University of Texas and then crowning her career as journalism dean at the Newhouse School at Syracuse. Lorraine deeply cared about those with whom she worked, taught, and enriched their careers of many journalists. Like Lorraine, Martin and Evelyn have dedicated their professional lives to enriching, empowering, and elevating the careers of countless journalists around the country. Their dedication and focus have enabled the Maynard Institute to continue to connect, train, and expand a community of journalists who aspire to live up to the words of Bob and Nancy Maynard and the cast of thousands who have become a part of their legacy over the last 45 years. Lastly, let me say this. In the times in which we live, there is no greater profession that is critical to the survival of our democratic republic. Lorraine knew this, S.I. Newhouse knew this, and Martin Reynolds and Evelyn Sue know this today. Evelyn and Martin have been helping lead Maynard in these pernicious times since they became co-executive directors about a decade ago at the Institute. And there has never been a more dynamic and impactful tag team, even in the world of WWE wrestling. They have led with vision, compassion, precision, persuasiveness, and humanity. Odette Keeley, who spoke here in the video, our Director of Regional Training and Communities of Practice, said this, and it is so true. Evelyn and Martin embody a rare kind of leadership, bold, adaptive, and unflinching in the face of a moment when civil rights are under attack and the role of truth-centered journalism has never been more consequential. They are fearless stewards of the organization, carrying it forward, and its founding mission has not left their focus, their urgency, or their purpose. I know this award recognizes a media organization that worked to promote inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility over the previous year, and acknowledges the hiring and development of leadership talent who create transitional change and high-quality journalism. The Maynard Institute has been doing just that for nearly 50 years. And so, as chair of the Maynard Board, I proudly and graciously present the Lorraine Branham Award to Evelyn Sue and Martin G. Reynolds. Congratulations, and thank you, Evelyn and Martin.
Thank you, John. And thank you to the Newhouse School and to everyone connected to the Mirror Awards for this honor. On behalf of the Maynard Institute, our board, staff,
faculty, graduates, and the many partners who have sustained this work, we are honored to receive the Lorraine Branham Award. The Maynard Institute has always been more than an organization. It is a community, a legacy, and a promise carried forward by generations of journalists who believed this profession could be better than it was. As John mentioned, we stand on the shoulders of our 9 co-founders, including Bob Maynard, Nancy Hicks Maynard, but also Roy Aarons, Frank Sotomayor, Steve Montiel, Dorothy Gilliam, John Dotson, Earl Caldwell, and Walter Stovall. The work has never belonged to one person or one generation. It has been carried by mentors, trainers, editors, reporters, board members, funders, and alumni who kept showing up because they believe journalism matters and because they believe who gets to shape journalism matters too. More than 40 years ago, our leaders decided to open Maynard programs to all, and it has remained so. They believed this would be the best way to support journalism and journalism leaders and build a society or build a craft that reflects our complex and multicultural society. And finally, I want to just honor the legacy and memory of the late Dory Maynard, who was our president for 10 years. I know Dory would have been proud to see the Institute receive an award named for Lorraine Branham, who Lorraine was a graduate of the first Maynard program, the reporting program, and her life and work reflected the values of this institute. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, so much. I also want to acknowledge my mom who's sitting over there. Hey, Mom, Margot Levy. So nearly 50 years ago, as was said, the founders of the Institute believed that something was simple and profound, which would be that the beacons of news in this country should reflect the full diversity of our nation. And that mission has always mattered, but it meets this moment with a particular sense of urgency. We are living through a time when representation is under attack in our politics, in our institutions, and in the stories this country wishes to tell about itself. And when people across fault lines are being told and targeted that you don't belong here. As we have seen, too many news organizations made public commitments after the murder of George Floyd to do better, to be better, and to reflect the communities they claim to serve, only to retreat when the public gaze shifted and the political and financial winds grew rough. That is why this honor feels like more than just recognition. It is a deeply appreciated act of affirmation for our board and our staff, and especially our graduates, who remain the most powerful and important reflection of our legacy. But this work has never been only about who is represented inside newsrooms. It's also about whether the people in our communities are seen fully, heard clearly, and understood for who they are. Our hope is that our shared humanity will prevail and that corrosive attempts to divide us will be met by the stories that reveal the beauty, complexity, and authenticity of the person beside each of you. Because they belong, because you belong, and because we belong. This is a moment that is difficult, but the work is clear, and we deeply thank Newhouse for this acknowledgement on the eve of our 50th year. Take good care.
congrats again to the Maynard Institute. Those are powerful words. And thank you to Evelyn and Martin and all of your colleagues for the work that you do to fulfill an important mission. We are closing our awards program tonight with the presentation of the Fred Dressler Leadership Award. The Dressler Award recognizes an individual who has made distinct and consistent contributions to the public's understanding of the media. It's named after the late Time Warner cable executive and Newhouse alum, Fred Dressler. This year's recipient is one of the most distinguished voices in American broadcast journalism, B. Lester Holt. That emphasis was mine, by the way. I'm a big fan. He's been a fixture at NBC News for more than a quarter century, principal anchor at Dateline, anchor of NBC Nightly News for a decade, a calm and authoritative presence covering some of the biggest stories this century, from presidential elections to conflicts around the globe. His decorated resume includes multiple Emmy Awards, the Edward R. Murrow Lifetime Achievement Award, and the Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism. And tonight, we are thrilled to present him with the Dressler Leadership Award. Also joining us tonight from NBC News is business and data correspondent and Newhouse School alum, Brian Chung, who will moderate a conversation with Lester about his career and the state of the journalism industry. But first, here to present the award to Lester is Liz Cole, president of NBC News Studios and senior executive producer of Dateline. Liz, back to you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am thrilled to be here tonight to celebrate the one and only Lester Holt as he receives the Fred Dressler Leadership Award. I've had the honor of working with Lester for almost 2 decades, and I can't think of anyone who deserves this recognition more. Looking back on the contributions he's made to the public's understanding of media, it's hard to know where to start, but I'm going to try. He has reported from Baghdad and Tehran, Ferguson and Uvalde, Beijing, New Orleans, Port-au-Prince, Ukraine, and just about anywhere else you can think of in between. He's interviewed presidents, Putin, and recently got a little time with the Pope. He spent 2 nights reporting from a bunk inside the notorious Angola maximum security prison, and yes, that one was for Dateline. And on top of all that, he moderated the most watched presidential debate of all time. No pressure there. The list could go on, but I suspect some of you would like to catch the end of the Knicks game, so I'm going to pivot and talk about the Lester I know behind the camera. Now, when I speak to Dateline viewers out in the world, there are 2 questions I get all the time. The first is, does Keith Morrison really talk that way? Yes, he does, and it's fantastic. The second question is always, is Lester Holt as warm and gracious in person as he seems on television? And I am happy to report that the answer to that is a resounding yes. Lester is sharp but tastefully reserved. He doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room. He listens. He really listens. He listens carefully. He listens deeply. He is compassionate, he's curious, and above all, kind, really, truly kind. He sets the gold standard for what it means to excel at the highest level of your profession and do it while remaining an exceptional human being. He is quite simply the best, and ask anyone at NBC News and they will tell you that is the 100% the truth. He's a joy to work with. Lester likes to say that the more you know about something, the less confusing or uncertain it becomes. That sense of public service is at the heart of everything that he does, and in an age of misinformation, it is needed more than ever. Whether he's sitting down with a world leader or a mother who's just experienced the most difficult moment of her life, he approaches every conversation with empathy, humility, and respect. And in doing so, he doesn't just tell people's stories, he helps us understand the world around us just a little bit better. Congratulations, Lester. It is an honor to call you a colleague and a friend. Lester will join us in a moment for a conversation with Brian, but first, please enjoy this tribute to his incredible career.
This is Lester Holt. I'm Lester Holt reporting from New York. Welcome to Today on a Saturday and a Sunday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. This is Dateline.
In a world that's got so much going on, Lester is such a uniquely calming voice.
When it comes down to it, down to his core, he's a reporter. He wants to be there.
He brings that sense of fairness, objectiveness. He's really focused on shedding light rather than shedding heat on a story.
It's that level of respect for the story, respect for the facts and the truth, and just respect for fellow human beings that speaks volumes to the character of my dad.
When I think about Lester, I think of someone who is unflappable. He's a great broadcaster, he's a great writer, he's a great interviewer, he's a great journalist. He's like the Swiss Army knife with all of the tools.
He's a consummate professional. He knows his stuff. He goes in with the right questions. And he tells a story, and he takes us on a journey.
He represents the best of our reporting around the world.
He's one of the hardest working journalists I know. I've covered hurricanes with him. I've been at the Olympics with him. He does it with this grace and this humor and this civility that is almost otherworldly.
He's tireless and dogged and will do whatever it takes to really bring the viewers into the heart of a story. He does what all good journalists should be doing, and as he seeks out the truth, and he wants to deliver it to the viewers in a way that is honest and compassionate.
By approaching stories with the curiosity and the intense journalism that he does, I think he's a fair broker of information, and people see that.
There's such positive feelings for Lester within the Dateline audience that it's very comforting, even though the stories may be dark sometimes. When you see Lester at the beginning and the end of the program, I think viewers have a sense that everything's going to be okay in the world at the end of the day.
I think Lester is one of the true journalists of our time.
Lester's legacy is integrity and decency. Somebody who has just been quietly excellent for decades.
And that is the magic of Lester Holt.
I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Okay, everyone, please join me in welcoming Lester Holt.
Give it one more. Thank you.
Too ostentatious as putting it there like it's just part of the furniture. It's great.
Some heavy hardware there.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for doing this.
Yeah. No, I will say I was joking, I think, with you before we got on here that I think this is the first time that we've gone up here around this time without 4 cameras and a jib in Studio 1A. And I think this is also now the first time where I get to ask you questions as opposed to vice versa on Nightly News.
You're just sitting there launching you on your way.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, just to jump into this, the Dressler Award, when you think about the previous people who have won this award, you think of Judy Woodruff, Dean Baquet, Bob Costas, Tom Brokaw, now Lester Holt. What are your initial thoughts?
I mean, somebody made a mistake, but beyond that, no, I don't want to make light of it because this is a very special honor. I'm one of those that believes honors like this are important in our industry to remind us of the importance of what we do, remind us of the talent that we have around us, and what our true goal is, which is to inform the American people. When I think about this award, I think I made good choices. I made a good choice to get into this industry. I was one of those people who became passionate about a lot of things. For a while, it was airplanes, still love airplanes. Then it was music, still love music. But then it was television news, and I knew I had found my calling, and this is what I wanted to do. This kind of honor, again, reminds me of, that I made that choice, and with the hope that someday I would make a difference. And this seems to be a recognition that at some level, I've made a difference.
In another world, I don't know if everyone realizes this, but you are an incredible bass player.
It's the backup plan.
That was the backup plan. But I think I speak on behalf of the whole room and the industry and the nation at large in saying that, we're so glad you went down this route, because it has been an enormous public service, although he can still hit the J bass quite nicely, I will say. We saw that reel just now, wars, natural disasters. As Liz mentioned, you were in prison for a little bit. Not that you were charged. You were covering, of course.
But I love to play that with my wife. I go, remember back when I was in prison? It's just street cred.
Yeah, just a little bit of a flex there. Was there a particular story or a particular event, something that you covered that you would describe as your canon moment, kind of it really shaped your career and was like the big J journalism moment for you?
Well, there were a lot of chapters in my career. One of the big ones was when I made the move from local TV in Chicago. I'd previously been in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Yeah, I didn't think of the map. But when I made the move to MSNBC, it was the busiest 5 years of news that I can remember. When I got there, within a week, the supersonic Concorde, Air France had crashed. I was able to leverage some of my aviation knowledge. Then it was the 9/11. No, I'm sorry. Then it was the recount, the election recount. Then it was 9/11. Then it was the invasion of Afghanistan, then the invasion of Iraq. It was all happening within a 5-year period. And so I was thrust out there on the stage, earned a nickname Iron Pants from someone because of my ability to stay in the seat for many, many hours.
It is a skill.
Trying to keep it going. What they don't tell you about in cable news is, a lot of times, okay, we have breaking news, go for it. And you start, and then you're basing this on 1 or 2 pieces of copy on a paper, and then you're trying to keep it going. And that is, as you said, an art. And it was something that, in this case, distinguished me during some really hectic times in this country.
And so, obviously, during your 10 years at Nightly, now at Dateline, you've seen so much happening in the industry. What do you think the future of network news specifically looks like?
I still think there's, I hear all the naysayers. I've heard them my entire career, even before I was doing nightly news. But yet, there it is, every night, 6:30 Eastern time, the national shows are on the air, and they still command a large audience of people who I think just want a digest of what happened today. Just tell me what happened. I had a friend who used to say, by the time you come on, I know the news. I've seen the headlines. My phone has been chirping all day. He said, I tune in because I want to hear your take, meaning NBC News' take on the story. And that always kind of stuck with me as I prepared the newscast that, don't play people for fools. They know what's happened today. But you do have a role here to help shape people and help them understand the world around them. That sounded a bit like a promo, didn't it?
A little bit.
Tonight.
6:30 again, 6:30 p.m. Well, I mean, I will say as a business correspondent that has been on the program, and I've only been at NBC for 4 years, but the majority of that was with you, at least at Nightly. I think people don't realize that we have a 2:30 p.m. meeting, and in the 2:30 p.m. meeting, we essentially go through the rundown of the show, and every correspondent is in the room and presents what they have to share, and sometimes the story is still happening. But what I always appreciated about that iterative process was that sometimes when you're immersed in the story, you maybe lost the question that the audience will be asking or other types of questions that need to be answered as part of that. And in that 2:30 meeting, we kind of massage through and get through some of those questions. Do you think that the process and the way that we do our craft is maybe getting lost in the social media era and the times that we're in because people are consuming news differently?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I think when we sit down for that meeting, I always say it's what would the newscast look like right now if we put it on the air? What do we have? What elements do we have? What story will we be able to tell tonight? But in terms of, how people receive that, that's always been the tricky part. I try to do a newscast and I'm looking at the camera. I'm really trying to think of people, how they're responding to the news, what they need to hear, what they think they might want to hear. All those things are kind of racing through my mind. It's not my responsibility anymore. I'm at Dateline, in which we have a lot of time to put together stories.
No more hard raps.
No more hard raps. But it is, chasing the big story is what we're all about.
I mean, I think what you were just saying is almost another way of biting at the question of media literacy. This is an award, specifically the Dressler Award, for people who have made distinct contributions to the public's understanding of the media. As you kind of look at the world today, or the state of at least the United States of America, how do you assess the public's understanding of the media, knowing that it looks very different than it did in the day where there were only X amount of networks that you would be able to get that type of information from?
I think for a lot of people, there was a recognition that, well, the news is always there and you turn it on and they give you the information. It's become more complicated than that. I mean, I think that we talk about the importance of transparency in what we do. It's never been more important for us to be transparent because for a lot of reasons, I think most of them, they're pretty obvious to it. People, look at us now with a skeptical eye. Not all people, but a lot of people. And it's frustrating at one level, but I've learned to kind of park it in the, behind me someplace. I can't change that. What I can make sure is that our broadcasts built on facts. I think one of the things, and you harked on that meeting a while ago, I think one of the things that's always distressing is I wish people could be in that 2:30 meeting you talked about. I wish people could see the care that goes into every newscast, every word, every, punctuation, just to make sure, not only to keep us out of trouble, but just to make sure that we are upholding that high standard of journalism. And I think to myself, I read some of the things that are said about journalism. I think, man, if I could just bring you in to a meeting and you could hear these honest conversations, people just, in this forum operating on, what they know at that point and offering the caution flags that may rule the day, whatever it may be. But it's very important that we somehow convey that we're serious when we talk about facts and getting it right.
I mean, to your point, it really is the case that sometimes I'll come on the show and do a 40-second, what we call crosstalk. That's it, 40 seconds. And I almost can map it out in my head now how many words that is. But we have lawyers and we have standards professionals that will go over every single word in that crosstalk to make sure that we are holding up to editorial standards, that we are doing the reporting that we need to do. And if there are other questions that need to be asked, they have to be asked before we go to air.
I love to be challenged. I feel much better when a lot of people have looked at a script that I've written or, will look at the interview that I've done, make sure the questions were based on, correct assumptions and correct beliefs. I think it's hugely important that we have people looking over our shoulder, not in an intimidating way, of course, but looking over our shoulder to make sure that we're holding up those standards high.
And I will say, just as an aside, just if I can kind of compliment you a little bit, Lester will take it. When I first started at NBC, first network job, I still am nervous all the time. It is very intimidating to be on the national news. And when I first jumped on your program, I remember it's a 40-second live crosstalk. There's kind of no do-overs for the most part. And so not only do I have to speak to the national audience, but I'm looking at Lester Holt in the eyes. And I don't think people realize in Studio 1A how small that desk is. It's not very big.
It's a tiny desk.
It's actually, I'm closer to you than I am now when I'm at the desk. And so I remember one particular crosstalk where I was so nervous and I went to script and everything was okay. But we went into a commercial break and you opened your mouth and I was like, oh no, did I mess something up? Oh no, this is going to be it. And you looked at me and you said, hey, don't forget that you left your badge in the green room on the way out. Now, for people that don't realize this, at NBC in 30 Rock, it is a death knell to not have your badge on you. Because it does not matter if you are less, right? You got it right there. If you do not have your badge on you, your face card does not get you into the building.
Even though I say, do you know who I am?
That's happened to you? They don't let you in?
Do you know who I think I am? Yeah, it's happened, yeah.
So it is bad news bears if you do not have your badge on you. And Lester saying that during the telecast, essentially, and it's the attention to detail. You are so detail oriented, and you're so kind and you're so thoughtful about everybody else. And it is true what Liz was saying. Everyone, you poll anyone in the newsroom who has had the chance to meet you, and everyone would say that in addition to being an accomplished newsman, you're also just a kind and gentle person in the truest sense.
Thank you for that.
Now, I do want to ask, we are at Syracuse. First off, go Orange, class of 2015, proud Newhouse grad. There are students that go through the Newhouse program every single year. What do you think the message is to them if they're trying to get into, it doesn't have to be the broadcast industry, but journalism at large in 2026? What would the message be?
I think the message needs to be don't be discouraged. I realize, and I've been guilty of this, there's a lot of doom and gloom coming from people in our positions and positions like it who in many ways are mourning the way things may have used to be in broadcasting. I'm in total agreement that a lot of these things are alarming. Lack of resources, and you see it throughout the industry. You see communities not getting a diversity in local news. We're all seeing it, and it worries us, and we speak out because we are passionate about what we do. But at the same time, we have got to encourage. I think one of the things that struck me was I had been in a conversation like that, and then a few minutes later met some young people in the newsroom who just couldn't be happier, just thrilled to be there, excited to be doing what they were doing, to be around people of your caliber and others. And it reminded me, we've got to watch what we say. We need to talk about the challenges in the industry, but at the same time, we need to buck up and support younger people who are the future of this business. It sounds like a cliche, but they are. They will take it over at some point, covering these stories. There's some things we don't compromise on, we can't compromise on, but we have to understand these are changing times in our industry, frankly, a lot of industries. We've got to stand for truth and the integrity of this business, while at the same time nurturing and make sure we're not discouraging young people.
It is true that I feel like everyone in a newsroom has had an experience with one self-deprecating journalist that can be a little discouraging sometimes. But I do want to ask, in terms of the tools that these young journalists are need in this day and age. You have artificial intelligence. You have the way that people are consuming news changing. What do you think is the key in an ever-adapting, changing media landscape?
I think you said it. It's adapting and changing, learning to sign on to that. I mean, as a more senior member of the team, I handled that well, I think. As a more senior member, I recognize that I may be a little bit slower to adapt to the newest app or, whatever the kids are doing. But, at the same time, we've got to stay relevant. We've got to, keep our nose in the game and understand what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we have to do it this way.
And as we wrap up here, I'll toss it back to Dean Lozado in a second. But we have a tradition at Nightly News where if someone from the team leaves, we usually ask the question of, what have you learned?
Yeah, what I've learned, you can't do it alone. I think we've discovered that in a lot of industries, if you've worked in them long enough, but you can't do it alone. We don't get a broadcast on the air. We don't get a story on the air alone. We need each other. And now we need each other more than ever, not just on a, station by station or broadcast outlet by broadcast outlet, but just as journalists as a whole. We've got to, in some cases, band together to, uphold the tenets that, we subscribe to.
Well, congratulations,
that was
Lester.
My cue?
Right, yeah, that was the wrap cue. Congrats, Lester.
Thank you so much.
All right. Again, thank you, Lester and Brian, for that wonderful conversation. And congratulations once again to Lester, the Maynard Institute, and all of our Mirror Award finalists and winners tonight. And a special thanks to our alums who played important roles tonight. Brian for moderating our conversation with Lester, and of course, our amazing Master of Ceremonies, Cheryl. Thank you both. And for everyone here tonight, your presence helped us recognize the kind of writing and reporting that shows why journalism matters. Work that holds accountable those in power, but that also holds accountable our own industry as well, all for the benefit of the public good. Remember, net proceeds from the Mirror Awards fund Newhouse Scholarships, which provide students access to a quality education and the opportunity to study at Syracuse University centers in New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and abroad. Our faculty and staff are among the best in their fields, and I want to thank those who took the time to travel from campus for joining us tonight. Together, we are committed to ensuring that Newhouse remains the best communication school in the country. Yes, I think I heard a yes. And finally, I want to thank our students here tonight. Their collective talent and enthusiasm are the heartbeat of the Newhouse School. They continually rack up awards, create shows, cover sports, host podcasts, and publish magazines, and do about everything else on campus that you can think of. And they represent the future of our industry, as Lester said. And for our guests, if you have not had a chance to speak with our students yet, please do take a couple minutes during our reception, learn more about their career goals and aspirations and what makes Newhouse special for them. So finally, thank you all for your support of the Mirror Awards. Now, please join us for what will be a terrific reception upstairs. Plenty of food and drink for everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.